And something is wrong with either Frank Reich as a coach, with this Colts team as a collective, but I'm going to go with the underdog +4, the Jags.
Pam sold it so hard, even I won money last week. But the goal here is to win money this week. Week 3, the Bills, the Eagles, they're the best team in the league. What are we doing with the new look Cooper Rush, Dallas Cowboys, and these 0-2 teams? Can we still trust them? Should we get back on them? Let's find out on the Huddle, presented by OddsChecker. I'm Pat Mayo, joined by Pam Maldonado, Brian Matthews, and Ross Tucker, who last week said that, quote, there is no hope with the Dallas Cowboys. Now that you've seen Cooper Rush in play, Ross, what are we thinking now?
Well, I would say there's still not a lot of hope, but maybe there's a little bit of hope. I was not expecting the Cowboys to win that game against the Bengals as big underdogs. Kudos to them. We'll talk about the Bengals, I think, a little bit later. But that was a big win, obviously. Not only just to get a win on the ledger, but just for the psyche of this Cowboys team moving forward. Micah Parsons, I think right now, is clearly the favorite to be the defensive player of the year in the NFL. In fact, I might put some money on that because I think he's got a great chance to do it. And I think there's still pretty good odds that you can get. So the combination of Micah Parsons and the defense playing that well with Cooper Rush playing okay, playing fine, could be enough for the Cowboys to win a few games. I still don't think they're going to the playoffs, though.
Pam, is this a Cooper Rush type deal, or is this Dallas's defense is actually kind of good?
I have no idea. Like Ross had it right. Micah Parsons is the best player, not only defensive right now, but I think he's the best player in the league right now. So I'm on board with hopping on, buying him right now to get defensive player of the year. But Cooper Rush was a complete surprise to me. This Cowboys offense was a complete surprise to me. This was a Cowboys offense that did not reach the red zone once in week 1. And then all of a sudden, right out of the gate, Cooper Rush, 12th place, 75 yards, touchdown in the opening drive, and then followed that up with another 7 points on the second drive after. So it was a complete shock for me. Seeing Joe Burrow struggle on offense was not the surprise because of that offensive line, but seeing Rush kind of manage this offense to look like a very capable offense, maybe we're giving him a little bit and we're not giving him enough credit. So maybe it was a home spot situation. I want to see more. This is still not a team that I'm comfortable laying points with as favorites, though.
Brian, looking at it right now, Micah Parsons is 4-1 to win Defensive Player of the Year. He is the current favorite. I don't know about this best player in the league talk, though. I hear Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen are still alive.
Yeah, look, right now, just looking at that, I think Josh Allen, after what we got to see last night, he made a pretty clear statement that he might be the top player in the league. And I know defensively, you've still got Aaron Donald, but just looking at that team, we're talking about the Cowboys. And while I was surprised with Cooper Rush, I think I was more surprised with the fact that the Bengals just laid an egg, in a game where they were heavily favored. Joe Burrow could have looked to get back on track after, a tumultuous week 1, but now they sit here 0-2. And like we're talking about, the odds don't sit in their favor.
Ross, I want to get your input on this because the Bengals have started 0-2. The Raiders have started 0-2. The Raiders, they could have won both those games. They just kind of blew it. The Bengals, on the other hand, all the talk in the offseason was, the revamped offensive line. Look at this protection for Joe Burrow. You're a former offensive lineman. How long does it take for these units to gel? Because we've seen Jacksonville's offensive line gel pretty quickly. Is it a case of bad signings, poor coaching, or is this just going to take some time?
Well, 3 things. I think some of the coaching leaves a lot to be desired so far from the Bengals, which is a little bit surprising. They also were a little bit overrated coming into the year. They were a 10-7 team last year that almost lost in the wild card round to Derek Carr and the Raiders. They were in the red zone. I thought for sure the Raiders had a great chance to score there, but the Bengals went on a playoff run, so they deserve all the kudos that they got. It does take time for an offensive line to start to work together with each other. Continuity, chemistry, those are real things. But I'm also going to say something that not enough people are saying. Joe Burrow needs to throw the ball. Throw the ball, dude.
Yeah.
He holds on to the ball all the time. I saw this last year with him, especially in the postseason. Joe Burrow needs to learn to get rid of the ball. I think sacks are much more a quarterback stat than people like to know.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any sort of preference, Brian, between one of these two teams turning it around? Because I think everyone's going to say Bengals because the Raiders just play in that division of death.
Yeah, that would be the answer. I do think that the Raiders, though, like you said, you look at these two games; those are two games they could have won, and this last one they should have won. But still, I think everyone's kind of banking on what they saw last year from Joe Burrow down the playoff stretch. But right now, I think the Bengals, it just looks like tough sledding. I mean, they went in. This Dallas team, was overmatched, at least what we thought, and they took it to them the whole game. Joe Burrow didn't have that kind of same swagger that we're used to seeing him have. So maybe the Raiders might be in the conference of death, but they've got the slightly better team in my opinion. But I'll go Raiders here, just based on the team.
Pam, you buying the Bengals rebound?
No. I mean, if you're talking about playoff situations, could either of these teams make the playoffs? Maybe, but I would rather put my money on both of these teams to miss the playoffs, because if I'm looking at a team to make a late season push to kind of squeak their way in, competition matters, right? Well, if you look at the Bengals after the bye, they're playing at Pittsburgh, who should have TJ Watt potentially back. You have the Chiefs, the Bucks, the Patriots, the Bills, and the Ravens. That is a very difficult schedule. And then you have the Raiders, who have a similar type of schedule against the Chargers, the Rams, the Patriots, the Steelers, San Francisco, and the Chiefs. Neither of these late season schedules are conducive to making a playoff run. And Ross was talking about, it's a quarterback stat, all those sacks, 19 combined sacks, 3 interceptions. And between these two games, both of these teams are number 1 and number 2 in danger plays, number 2 and number 3 in interceptable passes, and 24th and 26th in deep ball completion. Both of these offenses are in trouble. I think Joe Burrow is getting figured out. 29th in accuracy against the zone. Ross, our team's going to start playing more zone, because that's apparently how you can defend against this Bengals offense.
Yeah, they are, because number one, it helps not let a guy like Jamar Chase get behind you. Number two, they feel like they can beat the Bengals offensive line with a straight rush. You can play zone behind it. You don't need to play man-to-man and bring pressure. That said, I still think the Bengals have a better chance to go to the playoffs than the Raiders. The Raiders division is just too tough. I mean, the competition, the idea that they're going to be able to rise above or even be in the mix with the Chiefs and the Chargers, I think is very unlikely. Whereas the Bengals, you look at the AFC North, 0-2 start isn't ideal, but they're only a game out, and they very easily could still win that division. In fact, I think they're probably the second best team in that division still, behind the Baltimore Ravens.
It's funny looking at the AFC North. We kind of made all of these strong cases for a lot of the units on these teams. Pittsburgh's defense, well, now there's no more Watt. He tore his pec. He's going to be out for ages. And Trubisky, much worse, I think, than a lot of us would have thought. You look at the Browns. I mean, they needed to get through this easy part of the schedule with a ton of wins to wait for Watt, and they just lose to the Jets. Baltimore is just being Baltimore from last year. Everyone's getting hurt again. That eventually you're going to hit a point of no return. So the Bengals are still very much alive. Let's go back to the Jets for a second, because they play the Bengals this week. They pull out the miracle, not only cover, but win against the Browns. Nick Chubb, why don't you take a knee? Maybe you can win the game. Maybe that would work out. Maybe Stefanski needs to talk to him a little bit about that one. And then the Dolphins down 21, second half, no problem. Tua Magic is back at it. Not only do they cover, they outright win the game. It was terrifying for me, because my two best bets of the week were Dolphins plus 3.5, Jets plus 6.5. Never run better in my life. But Ross, you were on Miami with me. Were you getting the palpitations a little bit?
Oh, yeah, I thought I was done. I thought it was dead. And I had a great week. I was up 9 units. Thank goodness. The only team that didn't come, I think I had 8 bets, and the only team that didn't come through for me was the Seahawks. Maybe they shouldn't have a guy named DJ Dallas throwing the ball on the goal line. Thank you, Pete Carroll. Still mad about that, if you can't tell. But yes, I was not expecting that from the Dolphins. I don't know how they convinced the Ravens to just let Tyreek Hill run past them. I mean, the amount of teams, in all sincerity, that did stuff this weekend, in particular, the Browns and the Ravens, where they did a series of things that were the only things they couldn't do in that situation to lose the game. And then they did it. How the Browns drop a coverage on Corey Davis like that is beyond me. They can't recover the onside kick, although that was actually a great job by the Jets. And then the Ravens to just let I mean, if I was on the sideline, they would have been better off having all 11 Ravens players 50 yards off the ball and not let Tyreek Hill get behind him. That has to be maddening. And they both did that at home. I mean, at home games, Ravens fans, home opener, Browns fans, home opener. I would have been throwing up in my beer cup if I was a fan of either one of those teams, but I wasn't. I bet on the Dolphins with Mayo, so I loved it.
If you would have told me preseason that the three quarterbacks that are going to lead through the first 2 weeks of the NFL would be Tua Tagovailoa, Carson Wentz, and Joe Flacco ahead of Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, and Patrick Mahomes, I would have just like called you crazy. But that's where we are right now after the 2 weeks. But for me, Flacco is definitely like the bigger surprise here. He's thrown back-to-back 300-yard games. This is 5 touchdowns, 1 interception. The last time that Flacco had back-to-back games throwing for 300 yards or more was in week 13 and 14 of 2016. I have no idea what to do with that information. Are we going to continue on with Flacco? Like, he's looking really fantastic. Fourth quarter Flacco did me a solid, obviously with you too, because we both had the Jets. Maybe I have always said, don't bet the Jets, but maybe we should start betting the Jets.
Yeah, Brian, is it more of a thing of don't bet on the Jets, or if Jacoby Brissett is going to be laying 6.5 points, just bet against that?
Yeah, I think it's the
Exactly.
latter. I mean, if you have Jacoby Brissett at quarterback, I go the latter. I mean, they're going to feed the ball to Chubb about 20 or 30 times. You'll get, a lot of Kareem Hunt as well. I actually was surprised, though. Brissett did look sharp at points, so he was on the same page with Amari Cooper, which I thought was at least encouraging. But yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of more the latter. I mean, you know what you're going to get. They're going to run the ball down. The projected point total is going to be low. But, if they can control the clock against a good team, then I'd look at it. But it really is tough to lay a lot of points with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback.
Well, what we've seen from Brissett so far this season is kind of strange, that the Browns have been up in both these games against Carolina and the Jets, and he's not a terrible front-running quarterback. He's likely not going to turn the ball over. He's not going to take chances. He's going to hand the ball off. But eventually they're going to get into a circumstance. I know that they're playing on Thursday night this week. More on that here in a minute. But what does he look like, Brian, if he gets behind in a game?
See, that's what's tough to me. I look at the opponents, and we talked about this being the easiest stretch of the Browns' schedule, right? And so then you kind of roll that into next week. And these early games, they can really lean on Nick Chubb and you use Kareem Hunt, sparingly here and there, actually a good amount. But when they can do that, they can control the clock. Like you said, as long as they're not turning over the ball, they've got a great defense. You've got Myles Garrett, you've got great pieces in the secondary with Denzel Ward. The collapse coverage at the end of the game doesn't help, but they've got the pieces. So really, I think that's it.
Ross, just very quickly, I want Tua to be awesome, but I worry that he might not be awesome. But I have not been more excited during a game for a comeback of just like crazy plays since that weird run that Tebow went on when he absolutely couldn't lose.
You know what? I don't know that Tua's awesome, but I do know that it feels like he is in the best possible position he could or ever will be in to have success. It just feels like Mike McDaniel really understands Tua's strengths and limitations and is calling plays, designing the offense for his strength. Then he's got, certainly the fastest pair of receivers in the NFL. I don't know if they're the best pair, but they're up there. I mean, they certainly can make an argument as being the best duo of wide receivers in the NFL right now. And Mike McDaniel, from the Shanahan tree or whatever you want to call it, he knows how to get them the ball. And it helps when the Ravens just decide not to cover Tyreek Hill. I mean, what are Tua's stats when they actually attempt to cover Tyreek Hill? Because that would change his stat line quite a bit. That was like 2 50-yard touchdowns right there.
Well, we all won money, at least from what you saw at the beginning of the show, with Pam in fading the Colts. Now we're into a trickier situation with the Colts. Now they're big dogs. They're at home. They're playing the Chiefs. No possible way they could win this game or even cover that spread, according to most of the public, Pam. But Matt Ryan looks awful. but can he finally start to get it together?
So yeah, definitely not surprised because I took the Jags. I took the Jags money line, but entering the season, I was looking at data points, and there is some alarming data points that said do not back the Colts early in the season, no matter how good this team should be looking. But entering week 1 at Houston, the Colts were 0-8 in week 1 since 2014. Of course, they tied the game in 20 all. Then they go over to Jacksonville, and looking at their data history, 0-6 straight up against the spread, and straight up and against the spread since 2015 against the Jags. Trends no longer become trends when it's a continuation, because then eventually it becomes a habit. It becomes a real problem. So my question is, under head coach and Frank Reich, in weeks 1 through 5, 8-12 straight up record, but in weeks 6 and on, 29-16. Matt Ryan looked awful against the Jags, 0 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 5 sacks. I know that Ryan wasn't good, but my question for Ross is eventually, how much of it is coaching? How much of it is adapting? Because they had the quarterbacks before. It was Andrew Luck, Jacoby Brissett, Phillip Rivers, Carson Wentz, and now Matt Ryan. So there is an adjustment period. So the early season records kind of make sense to me considering the turnaround that they've had each season. So I do expect Matt Ryan to improve, but it's not going to be anytime soon. It's going to be mid-season like we have seen in seasons before.
Well, they can't be any worse. I know that, right? He can't be any worse. They can't be any worse. I mean, what, they have 10 possessions? It was like 5 punts, 5 turnovers against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Absolutely brutal. They do have some issues on the offensive line, but this is the thing that happens in the NFL, right? The Colts had a couple position groups coming into the season that were not a strength, that they did not have depth. And then what happens? Michael Pittman gets hurt, can't play. They're in a bad place when that happens. They don't have other good receivers. Nobody was open when Matt Ryan dropped back to pass. I think when they get Michael Pittman back, they'll be better. I think the offensive line will get better. And I think, to your point, Pam, I think that Frank Reich will do a better job figuring out what Matt Ryan likes, how they can perform better. And honestly, the best thing they have going for them right now is just the division they're in. You know, nobody in that division is a good football team. Not a single one. I mean, Jacksonville might end up winning that division, but the point is it's imminently winnable. And so the Colts, even the Titans, who looked horrible Monday night, neither one of them are out of this thing at all, not by a long shot.
Jacksonville, on paper at least, per the early DVOA, the number 2 team in football. So we'll see how that ends up working out in about 5 weeks' time. Maybe not so much the case. But sticking with the Colts, Brian, do we see Nick Foles at some point if Matt Ryan continues to be terrible?
I mean, at some point, potentially, but they brought Matt Ryan in, to help stabilize things. But I think at a certain point, if you keep looking like this, you've got no choice but to look elsewhere. You look at a guy like Foles, he has some experience, but look, I think everything's got to get settled. And Matt Ryan, he has to get settled in that offense. Find out, what he's comfortable with, what he likes. But I don't know, that Nick Foles threat is always looming.
I mean, this is the perfect Nick Foles situation. Come in, replace someone that everyone thought that was going to be good, and all of a sudden you're throwing 6 touchdowns a game, and then it will come to an end, and it will just end in disaster. Or a Super Bowl. It goes one of 2 ways whenever Nick Foles enters the game. And then we kind of take a look at these other teams from last week. You have the Broncos, who struggled against the Texans. They struggled against the Seahawks. Not quite sure where they're at. And I guess the biggest story of week 1 at the quarterback position, the Niners losing Trey Lance for the season. Good thing they signed Jimmy G. All of a sudden, Debo's getting back involved in the passing game without Trey Lance. Ayuk's making catches everywhere. They're throwing him the ball. So, Brian, of those 2 teams, which are you the most concerned about moving forward?
Me, I'm more worried about Denver. I personally think getting Jimmy Garoppolo as a substitute for Trey Lance actually boosts the Niners. And I think we saw something about their Super Bowl odds, getting shorter. I think they're actually a better team with Garoppolo. He's taken them to a Super Bowl. Trey Lance, I feel like they were trying to figure out how to fit him in there. But yeah, I'm not as worried about the 49ers.
I am very worried about the Denver Broncos. They are a mess. I can't believe it. I actually liked the over on their season win total coming into the year. So don't listen to anything I say on this show because they got no shot right now. I mean, I really thought Russell Wilson's presence would elevate everyone in the organization. I cannot think, I'm 43 years old. I cannot think of a head coach that's gotten off to a worse start than Nathaniel Hackett. And the guy won a game. He won a game. And it's unbelievably bad what they've done on the goal line, what they've done in short yardage. But the timeouts, the delay of games, the whole crowd is chanting the countdown on the play clock like we're at an Alanis Morissette concert in the 90s to Ironic. I mean, I don't know what is going on with the Denver Broncos, but what are the odds that Nathaniel Hackett's going to end up being a good coach? Like, he might end up being okay, but you don't go from being maybe the worst I've ever seen through 2 games to being really good, to the point where any Broncos bet right now, I am selling out of it. I want nothing to do with this team. And I agree with Brian. Jimmy G only upgrades the Niners right now. Trey Lance was the long play. Jimmy G is the better short-term play for the Niners. I think it helps their futures bets, helps their season win total.
For the most part, we look at players, and that's what we're using for our handicapping, right? We're talking about the Deebo Samuels. We're talking about the quarterbacks. We're talking about Russell Wilson being a good, potentially a good thing for this offense. But at some point, especially with teams like the Broncos, you really have to weigh in coaching as part of your handicapping because, yeah, he's a first-year head coach. He's probably going to make some mistakes. But as Ross mentioned, no coach has started as poorly as him, but it's more so definitely all of his decision making. He at least made half a dozen mistakes, and he's talking about, I was happy that he went for it on 4th and at the 50-yard line. That was great. That's a good spot to go for it. But then you wasted your time out. You tried to fake a pitch to Williams. You lost a yard, and then you ran 4th and 2 from the 36, delay of game, and then punts it away. It's just like, what is your decision making? It is so poorly run. He has almost no idea what he's doing. He's trying to get cute in spots and then ballsy in others. It just doesn't make sense. So for me, like, if I'm betting forward, I'm not looking to ever back the Broncos in a situation. I'm always looking for spots to fade purely because of coaching situations.
If you look at Hackett too, I mean, week 1, he's talking about the timeouts and saying, all right, after the game, I should have gone back and called the timeouts. Then after this last game, hearing boos, he says, I'd be booing me too. It's kind of indicative of where he's at. I think he knows, where things stand, but it has been abysmal. I mean, you watch the games and you're kind of wondering, what's going on here? There's got to be a better connection to what's going on, and the situations around him. So, I'm really curious to see how this one plays itself out.
So we've learned that Nate can't hack it. That's not good. He's a results-based coach, so he's kicking field goals in one situation. He's closer, and then he's going for it from a longer distance. They fumbled twice on the goal line Monday night, so they never try to run it again from the 1-yard line. It's just been very interesting. I'm not out on the Broncos, though. I think that they're going to end up getting this together. But I think the big revelation from all of this, Pam, is that Ross was like a Lilith Fair touring member in the late 90s.
I think 2 things. First of all, I used that joke on Twitter already, Pat, so I want some credit for I think I said more like Nathaniel can't hack it. Am I right? So I like that you referenced that a lot. And I think I only ever bought 2 CDs in my whole life, and it was Alanis Morissette, Jagged Little Pill, and the Rocky IV soundtrack. And to this day, I don't even know who the heavyweight champ of the world is, but if you put the Rocky IV soundtrack on, I'll beat them up right here at my house. I'll beat them up right here if you put the Rocky IV soundtrack on.
Well, then maybe that's what the Broncos need, a little Rocky IV soundtrack.
Well, we had a Rocky Drago situation Monday night when Philly absolutely waxed the Minnesota Vikings. Everyone's really high on the Vikings coming into the game. Like, these were the 2 teams that, out of the NFC. The new regime is here, the Eagles, the Vikings. These 2 teams are great. Pam, are the Eagles legit Super Bowl contenders, or and how do they compare to the Bills that we watched in the other Monday night game? Because it feels like one of these 2 teams is the Rabbit team this year. It's going to be like 7-0. Then we look at the end of the year and they're like, oh yeah, I don't love that team so much.
Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen. I'm not going to at all say that the 2 are comparable at the moment. It's through 2 games. They played the Eagles played Detroit, played Minnesota out of their home stadium, which is their comfort zone. I definitely love the Eagles to make a playoff run, maybe win their division, but to make the Super Bowl, no way. That's not going to happen. I'm not ready to call it. They're going to continue to look good, the Eagles offense, because they get to play Washington, Jacksonville, Arizona, Dallas, and then Pittsburgh, who may or may not be without Watt, and then Houston and Washington again, and then the Colts, who may or may not be good at mid-season. They have a really friendly schedule here early on, but then late in the season, you got to close out. It's friendly all around. I like them to make the playoffs. I am not at all going to be saying I am putting money on the Eagles to win the Super Bowl. No way, no how. There's better quarterbacks, better teams that should be in a better position.
Well, I will say this, though. You might want to consider them to win the NFC. I agree with what Pam said about them winning the Super Bowl. I think that probably would be a stretch against the AFC opponent. But you look at the NFC right now, how many teams do you really feel better about than the Eagles? How many teams do you really think are better than the Eagles? I was as surprised as anyone that they looked that good on Monday night. And I do their pregame show. I do their preseason games on TV. That's the best I've ever seen Jalen Hurts play. The defense was amazing. But let's see if they can sustain that a little bit. They're still, in my mind, not at the Bills level. I'll say this. I think the Eagles have a Super Bowl caliber roster. And if Jalen Hurts continues to play like he did Monday night, absolutely the Eagles are there. But that's another one where, man, you should have gotten in on Jalen Hurts MVP or on the Eagles to go to the Super Bowl or win the NFC a couple weeks ago. It's a lot pricier now.
Hey, I liked what I saw from them. I mean, really, I was kind of waiting to see, everyone kind of made a lot. All right, is A.J. Brown this missing piece that they needed? And they brought in some other pieces too on defense with Hassan Reddick. But I just watching them, like Ross said, Jalen Hurts looks in complete command of that offense. Last night it wasn't just relying on, A.J. Brown. It was, getting Devontae Smith involved, Quez Watkins, But the incredible thing that he does too is if he's getting pressured, he can quickly roll out, evade pressure, take 3 or 4 yards in what should be a negative play. So, I have been very impressed with them. I thought you saw them on the defensive side. But I do agree with Ross. Let's see them keep this up for a little bit. But if it does continue, they are a very scary team.
Well, we got football to talk about in week 3. It's Thursday night, Steelers at the Browns. We've talked about the Brownies just a little bit and how much Mitch Trubisky is not good for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So here's the situation where we're at. Thursday night, divisional game. The spread is pretty wide in favor of the Browns at the moment. And it's not like we're going to see Trubisky just absolutely light up the Browns defense. So probably no fear of Brissett having to play from behind a lot in this game either. But Brian, I want to start with you on this. If Trubisky comes out and plays like Trubisky the first 2 weeks, are we seeing Kenny Pickett in week 4 after the extended break?
If they feel comfortable with it, they're going to have to get him in the right situation. You don't want to rush him out there, but if he ultimately puts you in the best spot to win, then you've got to get him out there. And I look at the Browns this week and I see the spread. I think, everyone's assuming, all right, they're just going to be able to line up and run the ball. Pittsburgh has struggled, to stop the run. So, if they can control the clock, wind things down and keep Jacoby Brissett to, only having to pass minimally, when needed, I kind of agree with where that spread's at.
Ross, I don't. I like the Steelers here. Don't lay huge points with Jacoby Brissett. Good lesson for everyone.
Totally agree, Pat. I don't understand the line at all. And it's funny, full disclosure, before the show, I got in on the Steelers getting 5.5. Now, while we're recording it, they're only getting 4.5. So I don't know if that's because of Myles Garrett's neck and the fact that he didn't practice on Tuesday, or if it's just that much money coming in on the Steelers. I don't understand where this line's coming from. This is very rare that I feel like a line is this far off. I would think it would maybe be Cleveland laying 2.5, but 5.5, 4.5, no way. The total is really low. It's going to be a low scoring game, which means whatever points you're getting from the Browns are even more valuable. I don't like the Steelers getting the points. I love it in this game.
Pam?
Hey, let's also keep in mind too, I am a Browns fan here. I didn't want to mention that yet, so I'll get pummeled for that. I'm sure it's been, I guess I'm a glutton for abuse. So let's make that as a disclaimer here. And it's the Steelers.
Pam, the big thing is with this spread, when it was at 5.5 down to 4.5, we'll see how it goes. I'm sure if Garrett gets the green light, then all of a sudden it's probably going to go back up at this point. But what Ross said, this total is under 40. And we all know that in totals, the lower the total, the more valuable those points are on the plus side.
Yes, but at 5.5, I was probably leaning to Pittsburgh here. Cleveland gets the win. Pittsburgh gets the cover. However, now that the line is ticking down and more in favor of Cleveland getting a better number, I would be more inclined to grab them. I am more interested in the total. It is 38.5. I don't fear a low total in the NFL because this offense for Pittsburgh is absolutely awful. 26 in plays per game. This is a very slow run offense. And Cleveland is third in time of possession so far through 2 games. And both of them are 50% in red zone scoring. So I could definitely envision a scenario where it's, I don't know, for 17-10 with the Browns getting the win. Cleveland here is in a good spot to control the tempo, control the clock with Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt. I like the Browns at home to get the win, but I'm definitely more so looking to the under on 38.5.
I like Ross. Pittsburgh's such a weird team. Even without Watt, it feels like it's funny that they weren't able to do it against Mac Jones last week. But I think they dropped 3 passes that were thrown to them from Mac Jones. Just like a few things here and there, and all of a sudden the Steelers could be 2-0 at this point. They just play like garbage football. Is the best way I think I can describe it. They're just going to muck it up, make the game as ugly as possible. And when you have the Browns on the other side of the ball, like they play ugly anyway.
Totally agree, Pat. I mean, listen, you said it. Cam Sutton dropped an interception. That changes the game. Gunnar Olszewski muffs a punt. That changes the game. Even Nelson Aguilar made the best catch of his career, mossing Akelio Witherspoon. If Witherspoon knocks that ball away rather than waiting for it, I mean, we could do this with every game. I know that. But it was a field goal game. It was a 17-14 game. And Trubisky didn't even play very well. I don't really understand the disrespect of the Steelers right now and where this line's at. Jacoby Brissett, but the Browns, based on what? Based on what? The Browns have had so many mental errors, miscommunications in their secondary. They don't know who they're supposed to cover. The Browns secondary is a mess as well. Now, I don't know if the Steelers can take advantage of it with Mitch Trubisky, but I guess we'll find out.
Well, now you know who we like for Thursday Night Football, but it's time to win some money in Week 3. Hopefully as hot as last week. So we're going to get to bet or no bet. All right, let's stay hot. Week 3, Pam, who you got?
Give me the Dolphins, a bet on plus 5.5 against the spread, plus 190 on the money line at home to the Bills. I know it's a bit shocking, but the Miami Dolphins, they have been preseason. One thing that I learned from them is they are a great home team against the spread. They're an even better great home team as an underdog. 12-7 against the spread as an underdog in the last 2 seasons. 13-4 against the spread in the last 2 seasons as a home dog. The best against the spread home record in the NFL in that span. And you're talking about a time when we had COVID. The quarterback injuries were a thing in 2020 and in 2021. They had an aging offensive coordinator in Chan Gailey and one of the worst offensive lines and not much of a run game. So now you have the same solid defense. You have a rebuilt offensive line, new and better receivers. Mike McDaniel, Tua looks great. And who have the Bills played? Super Bowl hangover Rams with maybe a broken elbowed Matthew Stafford and Ryan Tannehill. I'm really excited about the Dolphins catching points at home. Give me the plus 5.5. I definitely already sprinkled on that plus 190 money line.
I got to push back on this one here. So the Bills beat no one because they beat the Super Bowl champions in the number 1 AFC seed last year and beat them by a combined, 25 points per game. And the Dolphins had to get every break possible to come back on the Ravens. Like, where was this vaunted Miami defense last week, giving up 40 points?
Every week is a new week in the NFL.
I'm staying away, Pat. I'm staying away from that one. I would probably lean Miami just because they're at home and getting the points. That's a stay away for me. My favorite bet's probably the Steelers getting the points. But other than that, I'll take the points in the Detroit Lions. Why are the Vikings on a short week after they just got obliterated laying points to the juggernaut that is Jared Goff and Amon-Ra St. Brown and the Lions? You laugh. You're all laughing. Stop laughing. I'm not laughing. The Lions offense is legit.
Yeah.
They shouldn't be getting 6 points. I love the Lions getting those 6 points. And if you want to get involved in that Packers Bucks game. That's probably my teaser game. One of them. There's a bunch of good teaser legs this week. I could only probably tease the Pack up to 8.5 in that game against the Bucks. That's probably a stay away from me as well, just a teaser leg. But out of the other ones that we didn't talk about, I'm going with my Lions, Dan Campbell and the Lions.
Brian, before we jump into your best play, can I sell you on, I mean, we went through this on every single show so far, and I hear that, good teams win, great teams cover. And the Atlanta Falcons, they're a great team, a covering team, Brian.
This is all right. Well, that's my pick. So I'm putting +2. I don't get why, against Seattle, they're getting +2. So Pat, that's actually pretty incredible. I was going to look back to you on that. But looking at that, I mean, just looking at this team, Marcus Mariota has done a remarkable job with, what he's got. And also the kind of, emergence of Drake London. I got to see him, do it in college as an SC guy, for a while. But seeing his performance, against the Rams this weekend, I mean, looking at that Seattle team, I'll take the points on Atlanta here. I will. Didn't think I'd be saying this 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, they're shockingly competent. I mean, that's all you need whenever, like I saw the other day that I think they might have the best odds for the number 1 pick right now. That absolutely blows my mind. So as long as they're going to continue to be disrespected, keep grabbing the plus points, they can continue to cover until the market adjusts. Just bet Atlanta every single week. But we still have, Ross kind of teased it himself, the pleasers and the teasers. Maybe we'll all throw one leg in here, unless you have more than teasing Green Bay up to 8.5 here, Ross.
Yeah, I got a lot of teaser legs. I mean, I call them Tux teasers. I love teasers. I wish we could have had teasers when I was a player. Would have really helped a lot in some of those close games we lost. I like Carolina up to 8.5. I like Tennessee up to 8.5. Getting that many points, you go through the key numbers of 3 and 7, just so critical in the NFL, and Atlanta as well. I'll take Atlanta. You guys were just talking about them. Pat, I wasn't really with you earlier, week 1. Listen, I thought the Falcons were better than I thought they'd be, which is before I thought they'd be the worst team in the NFL. I realized during the preseason they're not that. They're better than I thought. They're probably closer to what you thought, Pat, which is why I'll tease them up and take the points.
Well, long teasers abound for Ross Tucker. Brian, do you have something to add to it?
I mean, I would have stayed there. I'm not touching the Steelers-Browns game, but I do like one that I'm interested in, and this is just one that I'm looking at right now is Jacksonville. I don't know that Justin Herbert's going to play, so I won't add that, but we'll kind of stick with what I suggested. I really do like the Falcons with points there.
Yep. Yeah, Pam, do you think it's weird that this Chargers spread has just been out all week as they're just assuming Justin Herbert's going to play?
I think that the books already know what they know, and I'm not trying to guess what the books know or don't know. If I feel like I have an edge on them, it's because that's not true. So I'm going to let them decide whatever the line should be, and come Friday, Saturday, make my decision. I don't want anything to do with this game simply because of Herbert, and he may have a difficult time against this potentially getting stronger each week pass rush from the Jags.
Well, I mean, besides Atlanta, I don't think I'm going to end up teasing anything this week. I'll just say go with them. And the +2, when you see +2 -110 or the money line of +105, just you're buying too many points to take that money line. It's actually better and more value to lay the -110 with the +2 if you look at value per point in that situation. If anyone was torn between money line and trying to get that extra 15 cents, it's actually not worth it on the 2 points based on where you can buy points elsewhere across the board in that game. It's one of the most expensive points that you'll be able to buy. So Atlanta +2 for me. And after watching Miami's D last week and Baltimore's D last week, neither of these teams can stop slant routes at all. So whatever Jacoby Myers opens as total receptions against Baltimore is going way over. He might have like 14 catches in this game. It's going to be all for 4 yards at a time. But hey, that doesn't matter when the overs are hitting. That will do it for us on the Huddle this week. I want to thank Ross Tucker, Pam Maldonado, and Brian Matthews. I'm Pat Mayo. And before I let you go, I wanted to tell you about some awesome offers we have here at OddsChecker. First off, I wanted to let you know that our premium exclusive gambling experience, My OC Premium, has officially launched. For less than just $1 a day, you can have all the tools and picks you need to come away from this NFL season with some serious cash. With over 40 NFL picks each and every week and exclusive access to to our top handicappers from Dead Prez Picks and Brian Matthews to John Hyslop and That Guy Bets. My OC Premium gives you everything you need for your next win. So don't delay. Sign up for My OC Premium using the link in the description. And let's make your next win your biggest one yet. I also wanted to tell you about a giveaway we're doing on our Instagram page. Do you want $100? If you said no, I can't help you. If you said yes, all you gotta do is follow us on Instagram at OddsChecker-US and like our pinned post to automatically enter. It's that easy. Like and follow to enter, and you could come away with $100. And hey, why not throw that right into your My OC Premium Fund to come away with even more cash? Must be 21 or older, U.S. resident to enter.